What's up everybody, welcome to a new episode of the KTM 250 rebuild. Last week we reached 50 subscribers and we're now even at 55 subscribers. So I'm very happy with that and I just want to thank everybody that supports the channel. And the next goal is 100 subscribers, so let's see how fast we can get there. In the previous episode we replaced the brake fluid of the bike, the brake fluid in the front brake, the rear brake and in the clutch. So I will put a link in the upper right corner if you haven't watched that yet. In this episode we're going to install the parts of the cooling system and we're going to fill it up with some fresh new coolant. So let me show you which parts we're going to install. So we're going to install the radiators, as well the plastic guards for the radiators. And I got some new parts at Andre Motors. I got the coolant there and they had some second-hand cooling hoses. So I want to put orange ones on there, so I got these. So I have some new clamps, because the other ones were a little bit worn out and then everything looks nice and fresh again. And here we have some new copper rings for the bleeder in the cylinder head and the drain plug of the coolant, so that everything seals off good again. I also got a new tube for when it's getting too hot and it needs to spill some coolant. This one looked a little bit old, so I just got some new tube and we're going to install that with the clip in the frame. So let's start off with the radiators. So before we're going to install any hoses on the engine, as well the one from the radiator to the engine, we need to get all the protective tape of the connections. So we're going to start with the right radiator. So we need to place a clamp on here. So when we slide the radiator on there, we can clamp it down. And as well the right radiator is the one with the little tube. So we need to put this little black connector in the bottom hole of the frame. So you have two holes here right next to the ignition coil, and the bottom one is for that tube of the radiator. So that's it. So we're first going to prepare the right radiator. We're going to take the small straight hose and we're going to first place a clamp over the connection of the radiator and then push the tube over there. So we can move the clamp a little bit easier over the hose. We're not going to tighten it down because then we can move it around when we're going to place the radiator. Then we're going to take one more for the placement on the engine. So to place the right radiator, we're first going to put a clamp over the connection on the engine. Then I'm going to push the hose over there and slowly move the clamp on the hose as well and push it completely down. And then we place the clamp in the right spot. Then we can push the top connection into the frame. And make sure that this plastic frame is going onto the frame. And then we're going to place the little tube onto the connection into the frame. Just like that. And then we can tighten all the clamps. So we need to make sure that it goes all the way into this tube, and then we can tighten the clamp down. Always make sure that you position it in the way that you can reach it quite easy. Just like that. Now for the bottom ones. So you need to make sure that the hose is completely over there.
and then the clamp should be just behind the wider part of the connection. So as you can see here on the cylinder head, you have a wider part, and then just below it there needs to be the clamp, just like this. I'm going to tighten them down. And with the screwdriver is tight enough. So now we're going to place the hose that goes on top of the cylinder head onto the tube into the frame. So we need to place that like this. We're going to place the top clamp like this so we can reach it, and the bottom one like this. Just make sure that it slides all the way on there. And then we will do the bottom part. So we're first going to tighten the bottom one. And the top one almost disappears in the frame. But make sure that it's completely on the tube, and then feel where the wider point is and put it above there. It should look like that. So now we're going to place the left radiator, and we're going to place the long straight hose first on here, with the screw part down. So the only thing with this second-hand hose was that it's not completely straight. So I tested it and I put it in between the two radiators, and when you tighten the two clamps it straightens out, and that should be fine. So we will just see how it works. So to be able to place the left radiator, make sure that your cables are running on top of this hose. And then we're going to place this clamp on here. After that we will make sure that this bottom hose runs onto the connection of the other radiator. And we will push it in this one, just like that. And make sure that it's in place at the front here. So it's completely on here right now. And on the other side we're just going to push it over there as far as we can. Oh, we first need to place the clamp. So let's do that now. And then we push it on there as far as we can. Then we can tighten it. And then this side, also making sure that it's all the way on there. And then the top one. Just like that. So now that we have the radiators and all the hoses nicely in place, we're going to put the new copper rings behind the drain plug and the bleeder. So for the drain plug we're just going to put it on there and tighten it completely, because we don't have to take this one out again. It needs to be on 10 Newton meters. And for the bleeder, we're just going to put it in place and turn it in there. And then when we're going to fill it up with coolant, we need to turn this one out so that all the air can get out of the cooling system. So we're not going to tighten that one yet. So now we can fill the cooling system up with coolant. I got some coolant of Putolene. This one protects up to minus 26 degrees. I'm not going to drive when it's that cold, but it's good when you store your bike in a cold place or something like that. Then it doesn't freeze. As well, coolant is better in transferring heat than just normal water. Technically, you could just put water in your system and that would cool as well. But yeah, coolant is just a better substance to transfer heat. So I always recommend to just use a certain kind of coolant, and you can just use basically all different kinds, but this is the one I choose. So let's put this in there. So now we're going to fill the cooling system up with coolant. If you want to see how we drained the cooling system, we did that in one of the previous episodes, and I will put a link in the upper right corner. So you can watch that if you only want to exchange your coolant. So we're first going to get the radiator cap off. So now we're just going to fill it slowly up, and I always like to hold this a little bit higher so I can see how much is going in there and if it's almost full. So let's just pour it in. So it needs to run in everywhere, so you will hear some air coming out. So now it's almost completely full, but now we need to get some air out of the system. So we're just going to get the bleeder off here, and then we should hear some, or see some coolant coming out. Just like that. A little bit of a mess, but it's okay. So we know that it's completely full, no air in there. We will tighten this one as well at 10 Newton meter. So now we're going to fill it up a little bit again. Just so it's full. I'll just clean this up a little bit. So what we're going to do now is tilt the bike backward. I hope you hear that, but now there is some air coming out. Then we will tilt it to the left side. Just like that. You hear a lot of air. Now we're going to fill it up again. So I just topped it off, just in case there is a little bit of air in the system yet still. So the next time when we are going to ride, the air comes up and then the level will drop a little bit. And after the first time that we ride, we will just check the level and then make sure that it's full again, if it dropped. So let's put the cap back on there. And we're going to clean everything up and put the the plastic covers on there. So the last thing we need to do is install the covers of the radiators so that the radiators stay in place. So you need to place this edge over this lip of the radiator and on the bottom side as well. So you can just put it in place like this and then line it up with the hole of the screw. Just put one in place and then the bottom one. And usually I just use the KTM tool to tighten it, and that should be enough for these bolts. Just like that. Let's do the other side. And then the bottom one. And then tighten it. Just like that.
That was all for this episode. We installed all the parts of the cooling system and we filled the cooling system up with new fresh coolant. I really like how the orange cooling hoses turned out and how it has some contrast with the purple frame. So I'm very happy with that. And in the next episode we're going to place the subframe with a new air filter box. We're going to replace that as well. And we're going to place the engine mounts and as well the tube for the power valve vent. So if you don't want to miss the next episode, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. And if you like this content, make sure to give the video a thumbs up. And as always, see you next time.